My name is Ashley Choi, and I'm a first year at Northeastern University.
My name is John. I'm currently a pharmacy student at Northeastern University.
Hi, my name is William Clark. I'm a third semester Berkeley student majoring in CWP.
Do you feel pity for people with disabilities? Why? And does it differ for different disabilities?
Rather than pity and placing myself above them, I think I feel an inclination sometimes to acknowledge that they're different and acknowledge that they have the disability, but not let it define their abilities in a sense. I don't think a person should be placed at a certain level above or beneath another as to ensue pity just because of a disability, because that doesn't amount to what they're capable of or who they are. Sometimes it might differ for different disabilities because some disabilities are just more glaring than others. It's more obvious that some disabilities are there in comparison to others. For example, blindness might not be as obvious or as noticeable upon first glance as maybe autism or cerebral palsy or other disabilities like that.
Slightly. I do think, I do wish that people that are, blind, for example, that wish that they could see or something, I think that's definitely a disadvantage. And I do feel that people with disabilities such as cerebral palsy, they're still people, and I think that they know when people are treating them as, less than human, or if they talk badly about them, and I think that's not okay. There are certain disabilities where I think people consider them more as people. For example, if you're blind, I don't think anybody considers you as less of a person, and they shouldn't. And there's a different kind of pity for people with conditions such as cerebral palsy, where certain people might not consider them people as much, or they think that their life isn't worth anything. And I feel pity that they're treated that way, not necessarily for them as much.
I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria. I had a very normal, low-key kind of upbringing. I went to school, I hung out with my friends, I fought with my younger sisters. It was all very normal. And when I was 15, a member of my local community approached my parents and wanted to nominate me for a Community Achievement Award. And my parents said, that's really nice, but there's kind of one glaring problem with that. She hasn't actually achieved anything. Yeah, and they were right, I went to school, I got good marks, I had a very low-key after-school job in my mum's hairdressing salon, and I spent a lot of time watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek. Yeah, I know, what a contradiction.
Have you considered disability as being part of culture also?
Not in all cases do I consider disability as being part of a culture. However, when I was in middle school, I remember seeing students sign to each other, and I wasn't completely sure what was going on back then. But looking back, I remember looking at them and I was like, whoa, they have a really tight-knit community. And I think that within that program of deaf and hard of hearing students in our middle school, I think they did have their own kind of culture.
I think that because certain individuals with certain disabilities and people with similar disabilities kind of have to go through the same struggles and have to overcome similar disadvantages, or just be able to have to adapt to certain situations in which their disability kind of plays a role into how they go about things. It kind of creates a sense of community, only because these people with certain disabilities, I feel, would have similar experiences, and I think having those similar experiences kind of allows them to create their own sort of community or culture.
In what situations do you think inclusion or specialization of education for the disabled is better than the other?
I think a good mix of both is important. Starting with specialization, I think it's important for people that need, have special needs to receive the extra attention and care, or specialized attention and care that they need. to learn certain concepts or ideas. However, I think it's also incredibly important that they learn interpersonal skills and how to work with a group. So when learning concepts, I think it's important to use a form of specialization, and then when working on applying those concepts or working with a group, it's much more important to include them, because they are part of the group in the class.
I think that there are definitely pros and cons to each. With inclusion, I think that it allows for those with disabilities to kind of attempt to have like a more normal life. But I think that at the same time, a lot of people often feel outcasted or feel like outsiders because people treat them differently because of those disabilities, which I think would be a problem if inclusion were to occur. But with specialization, I feel as though while those with disabilities are able to kind of be in an environment where they're with other people with disabilities, I think that it kind of keeps them from being able to interact with other people who don't already have some sort of disability. But I think that there are definitely pros and cons to each.
What are your past experiences with people with disabilities, if any, and how do you believe those have shaped your current view of them?
I don't think I've had as many experiences with people with disabilities as other people have. I mentioned my cousin who's on the autistic spectrum, but only slightly. I think my experiences are quite limited. However, I know quite a few people who know people who are disabled, and hearing their opinions and their ideas and their experiences from it has influenced me. I think it has allowed me to have a better idea of what to expect, and that, with each person with a disability that you meet, it puts a personality or a face rather than just thinking of people with this disability. We always describe them by certain ideas or characteristics or conditions that they have. Somebody who's autistic might be like this. Well, it's nice to meet somebody who is on the spectrum and see that there's still a person, on the inside. It's kind of surprising, really, how much that's not represented when you read about it in like a medical perspective. So I would say in general, with each encounter or each person that I meet that's like that, they have a different perspective on things, and it helps me to understand how to deal with people of different backgrounds more.
People with disabilities are the largest minority in the world, and we are the most underrepresented in entertainment. The doctor said that I wouldn't walk, but I am here in front of you. However, if I grew up with social media, I don't think I would be. I hope that together we can create more positive images of disability in the media and in everyday life. Perhaps if there were more positive images, it would foster less hate on the internet. Or maybe not. Maybe it still takes a village to teach our children well. My crooked journey has taken me to some very spectacular places.
So I've worked briefly with people with disabilities when I volunteered my time in high school. I think that through my experiences there, it kind of helped me to realize that there's a lot more to a person than their disability. So it kind of helped me to understand that while I might have initial pity, I should quickly kind of think about who that person is and like where they've come from as a person, rather than just looking only at that physical or mental disability.